Hey everyone, and welcome back to Satisfactory News. Today we're going to test different belts and vehicles to see which mode of transportation is the fastest and the most efficient. But before we get into the content of the video, I want to say thank you to all of you that watched the last video, that being the general Update 6 overview. The previous most popular video on this channel had 40,000 views, which I thought was quite a few, but this Update 6 video has gotten over 100,000 views and it's still going. It's been amazing seeing so many new people subscribing and all of the comments discussing the update. We even crossed over 5,000 subscribers. I reply to a lot of the comments, so if you want to discuss the game, please feel free to leave a comment underneath any of the videos on the channel. Now, into today's video. I want to find out what the best way to get an item from point A to point B is. I'll be testing all 5 tiers of belts, and then the tractors, trucks, trains, and drones. The primary test is simple. I've set up all of these methods in a line, and I'm ready to load up and transport a single item across a distance of about 30 foundations. Now, my assumption here is that the faster belts are going to be the fastest. Over this relatively short distance, the time it takes for a vehicle to load, unload, accelerate, and brake is going to heavily impact its time. That's why after this initial test, I'm going to do a bit of a longer test with the Mark V belts versus some of the vehicles. The timer is going to start as soon as I connect the belt or start autopilot on a vehicle. The timer ends when the item gets to the end of the belt. Of course, with all that said, there are a million ways you could poke holes in this test. It's far from perfect, but I hope this video is still helpful. And if you think it's worth exploring further in a wider variety of situations, let me know in the comments and I can make another follow-up video. So I started off by testing all of the belts. Belts are pretty standard over a set distance. It's easy enough to look them up as well, so it's not hard to understand their numbers. A Mark I belt took 3 minutes and 20 seconds. A Mark II belt took half of that time at 1 minute and 40 seconds. Mark III belts don't double the rate, they actually go a little beyond that, so it was slightly faster than twice as fast at 45 seconds. Mark IV belts were 25 seconds, and the Mark V belts were a blistering 15 seconds. So, can vehicles keep up with those? Even with the loading and the unloading time factored in, the tractor managed to do it in just 30 seconds, which is only slightly slower than the Mark IV belt. The truck did it in 25 seconds, meeting the Mark IV belt's maximum speed. This seems like the tractor and truck are really similar, only 5 seconds difference here. But the truck's maximum speed is a fair bit faster than the tractor's, so over a long distance the truck will tend to do better, and it can also transport more items at a time. The tractor's advantages are its size and maneuverability by comparison, but in general, if you have to pick between the two, you're going to pick the truck. Now onto trains. If you're familiar with trains, you won't be surprised to know that it had the worst time of all of the vehicles, coming in at 1 minute and 25 seconds. Most of the train's time is spent loading and unloading, as well as sliding into the docking bay. The actual speed of the vehicle is quite high though. It just takes forever to do the docking. But to be fair to the train, you're not going to be using it at a distance of just 30 foundations. It's just not practical in terms of materials, and its advantages are its ability to haul a huge amount of resources over a long distance, like from one biome into another. So you're going to be stacking multiple train cars on at a time and transferring tons of stacks. Next, I checked the drones. At this distance, the drone took 1 minute and 10 seconds, but again, most of this time was spent loading and unloading. Faster than a train, sure, but not significantly. While the drone can't carry as much as a train, it does have the same advantages, except it also has the ability to reach unusual areas that a train track or truck might not be able to get to. And it will beat a train if the train needs to wind through canyons or around obstacles. So now let's look at a longer distance. This is closer to about 100 foundations or so over triple the length. As a baseline, the Mark V belt took 58 seconds over this distance. The train ended up taking 1 minute and 50, only adding 25 seconds despite more than tripling the distance. The drone took 1 minute and 16 seconds, only 6 seconds longer than it took to travel just 30 foundations. So in case you're not convinced about using trains and drones at close distances, that should be your reminder. Clearly they excel the farther they go. It's hard to compare belts and vehicles without actually testing them in a real-world situation. Seldom is the world flat. Obviously you can build foundations, but a lot of people have their train tracks and vehicle routes run through natural areas that have hills. Mark V belts technically move 56.16 kilometers per hour, which is similar to the top speed of the tractor, which is 55 kilometers per hour. So does this mean a tractor is as good as a Mark V belt? Not at all. A belt will always move at the same rate no matter what, But a tractor or other vehicle will be affected not only by the docking time, but also by elevation changes, rough terrain, and things like that. 55 is a best case scenario, which is just not going to happen all the time. Okay, so all that said, what was the point of this video? What's the conclusion? Well, use belts most of the time, unless you need to transport things across an incredibly long distance, in which case you should use a train or a drone. The terrain in the area will definitely impact what you use, because a train isn't always possible if you need to go way up a cliff or way down into a valley. But there's also nothing wrong with wanting to mix it up and use a variety of transportation methods. Trucks are fun. It's fun to set up truck routes and build highways. So let me know in the comments what your preferred way to transport items is. I think it's fair to say that Mark V belts in bases and trains across long distances are going to be the popular answers. But I'm curious if you have other preferences, like you have a truck empire going across your world or something like that. Maybe you use explorers because you're insane. Anyways, leave that comment and leave a like if you found this useful, and I'll see you all in the next video.